Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. If you're joining us on YouTube, make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. If you listen to the podcast version of this, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Joining me as always is Keith Smith. Follow him on Twitter at KeithSmithNBA. Keith, I guess we got to kick things off with a new name coming to Los Angeles. Staples Center no more, and it's happening on Christmas Day. No less. Merry Christmas. Crypto.com Arena now. What do you think about that?
Right in time for the Christmas Day showcase games and all that stuff. Right? Like, yeah. It's weird. Like, I don't think much about it. Like, I saw people were kind of getting more passionate about it than I thought they would. It's like, I would get it if it was a truly meaningful name, but it's named after an office supply company. Like, why do we care that much? Like, it's not like it was a Mr. Staples, like that was like the builder of it or something. So yeah, I also thought it was funny because he just, as I know you're well aware of, some people like the Lakers get all these advantages. None of this money goes to the Lakers. Like, it's not really how this works. So it's they don't own Staples Center, which I think a lot of people think they do. Clearly they're the most famous tenant of the building, but it's we were talking about and trying to sort through, maybe somebody watching or listening knows for sure, but the parent company AEG owns half of the Kings, the hockey team, and there may be the chance that the Kings are like the priority tenant there, much like in Boston. The Bruins ownership group owns the TD Garden, so the Bruins get all the first pick dates, and then the Celtics get shuffled off to the others. And one thing we can be assured of is the Clippers are third.
That's for sure.
On that list. But yeah, I don't know. This isn't something that I get overly worked up at. But here's something that I promise you I wasn't going to tell you this, and I hope you haven't seen it. Did you see Robin Lopez's tweet?
I did not. I'm assuming it's Disney related somehow. Oh,
no, it isn't. He says, slightly disappointed AEG took CryptoArena.com, outbid the city of Boston, who is going to rename Staples Center F the Lakers, Go Pats Performing Arts Center. I thought that was great. He only was missing the you have to work in the Yankees suck in there, and you would have the full Boston experience out of that one. But yeah, I thought that was I thought that was pretty good. Pretty good.
But you see this sometimes in soccer where opposing clubs will buy billboards and things like that outside of their rivals. Or I know like some Dodger fans bought a billboard thanking Boston fans for Mookie Betts and things of that. You get kind of some stuff like that. That would be to rename an arena as a shot at an opposing fan base. That would be like next level, but you'd have to have somebody with just endless money to want to do that, because this deal is a U.S. record $700 million for the naming rights, Keith. I mean, look, back in 1997, Staples paid $100 million for lifetime naming rights. Yeah. That's a pretty nice profit to go 20 plus years and have that 100 million now be worth 700 million for not a lifetime deal, a 20-year deal for Crypto.com Arena.
For something that people will probably
call Staples for
the next 5 to 10 years
people,
still call
I still call anyway. I don't even know what it's called now. Where the Ducks play, I still call it the Pond. I mean, that's
I don't know. It was the Honda Center for a little. This is embarrassing because I lived right down the road and drove by the thing every single day for a year and a half. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's I like in Boston, it's just people just still call it the Garden, and it's not even the Boston Garden. It's not even the same building. It's like next door to where the Boston Garden was, and those kind of things. It's funny how the things that people get attached to, I guess, it just is weird to me. But yeah, I mean, hey, good for $700 million, I guess, is, it's good money if you can get it. Crypto.com, if you would like to sponsor NBA Front Office Show, we would love. We will even take less than
just a little bit. Come on, let's drive a hard bargain here.
That's it. Yeah, only a little bit, but we will take less.
I said it on Twitter. I said that's name it whatever you want kind of money. I mean, the largest U.S. naming deal ever.
outside of maybe
outside of
Robin
Robin Lopez's
Lopez.
idea. But yes, 700 million. That is absolutely bonkers. And yes, none of it goes to the Lakers. So it's not like I saw people out there saying, well, do the Lakers have enough money to pay Alex Caruso yet? As like, a joke. And that's not the way this works. So that's not money that goes into the Lakers' pockets or anything like that. But it is a change. And I think that's all it is people don't like change. It's been Staples Center forever. There have been some very positive memories associated with Staples Center, right? We've got all these iconic images of the statues outside of Staples Center, that kind of stuff. And so people are reluctant to change. But ultimately, I don't know if it's going to matter that much. And I will say the Crypt is a pretty cool name if it wasn't for the fact that the Lakers have the oldest roster in the NBA.
Yeah, I was gonna say it can go one of two ways, right? Because if you're not playing very well, it's like, oh, there they are. That's the Crypt. That's where everybody goes to die. But yeah, I think that would be kind of neat. And yeah, it's just gonna take a while to get it worked out. And that I will say, I thought it was super cool. Vanessa Bryant, I don't know if it was a tweet or Instagram or where it came from, because I saw her come through on Twitter, but she tweeted, it will forever be the house that Kobe built. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, that's kind of the reality, right? That's more how we think about it. And that's that to me is it's too long of a name to say every single time, but it's not going to change. Yeah, that's I think how you think about it. But yeah, it's
I said the only name change that Lakers fans would have been like, okay, right? I mean, it's always been Staples Center, so regardless of what it was changing to, the only way they would have been on board with it is if they had renamed it like the Mamba Center or something like that.
Yeah,
then fans would have been on board with it. Otherwise, any other name, it would have been, what do you mean? No, that's changed. I don't like that. That's everything.
Yeah. Again, as long as it wasn't Robin Lopez's suggestion, I think we're all okay.
Lakers adjacent news here. Tommy Shepard for the Washington Wizards promoted to president of the organization for the first place Washington Wizards. Keith, we're a month into the season, and the Wizards are in first place in the Eastern Conference, just like we all predicted.
Just like we all predicted. One of the more pleasant surprises, I guess, in the league is the Wizards. It's I said today on a radio appearance, they to me are kind of the epitome of the whole is greater than the sum of their parts. Because you look at their individual players and you kind of like all of them, right? I mean, you really like Bradley Beal, but all right, Spencer Dinwiddie's pretty good. Montrezl Harrell's pretty good in his role. Kyle Kuzma, okay, pretty good. Caldwell Pope playing pretty good for them. And then you look at it together and you're like, wow, it just kind of fits. I talk a lot about functional depth for teams, that it doesn't necessarily always go well when you have, 12 guys, but 8 of them are guards and ball handlers. Like, you're probably going to struggle to find lineups that work. But the Wizards just have pretty good functional depth. They've got, just enough bigs. They've got just enough wings, just enough ball handlers. They've got shooters. They've got drivers. They've got guys who can play inside. They've kind of got a lot of things. Now, the schedule has been pretty weak, so that's, obviously aided them. But as we say all the time, you only play the teams that are in front of you. It's, and I never really understand the whole beating up on a team for winning games that they should win, because we turn right around and kill teams if they lose games that they shouldn't. So it's, but yeah, the schedule's probably going to balance out. They're not going to finish first in the East, but they've put themselves in the mix, I think, for a home court advantage. And that's crazy.
We had them as maybe a play-in team heading into the season. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I should pull it up and see exactly where I did have them at, because I know you're right. It was around that range. So yeah, it is. I mean, great start for them. And Tommy Shepard, regardless of how you feel about Russell Westbrook, clearly did well in that trade, because that trade was roped into the bigger
deal as well,
that then delivered Dinwiddie and
Aaron
plus
Holiday.
all the Lakers guys. Yeah, I remember there was a point there as that was all playing out live. We thought maybe those guys were being routed to the Nets for Dinwiddie, and that ended up not happening. So that was good for them to put together the roster that way. I think I think that team is they are well on their way to being pretty, let's call it at least a good team versus a decidedly average team.
Bobby Marks for ESPN put out there on Twitter. He said, and maybe this is hyperbole. I kind of feel like we're edging into that territory here, but he said Kuzma, Trez, KCP, Dinwiddie, Holiday trade, the trade that netted all those players for the Wizards, will go down as one of the great deals of the last 20 years. And of course, he's responding to the promotion of Tommy Shepard and all of that, and that being a major catalyst that helped him get promoted based on how well the Wizards are doing right now. Is that going too far, do you think, to call it one of the best deals of the last 20 years? I mean, obviously this has worked for the Wizards, and they're doing great right now, but I feel like that's maybe going a step too far to call it one of the greatest deals of the last 20 years, although clearly it's worked. I mean, the Wizards are in first place right now.
Yeah, I think that's a couple steps too far for me. And I love Bobby. Bobby has been one of the most helpful people to me as far as learning things about the cap. He's always there for me whenever I have a question about something I'm not understanding. We've been able to workshop a couple things together just to understand it a little bit better. But yeah, he's always extremely helpful to me. But let's there might be a little bit of revisionist history in a trade he might have been involved in there. So it's I think that one should still probably be up there. But yeah, it also, right, it's November 17th today as we record this. So let's not get too insane about a 10-3 start. But yeah, I mean, they got 3 starters and 2 rotation players out of a trade for one guy. Like that's pretty good. Now it helped that one guy made $45 million. Yeah, that doesn't hurt you as far as getting back a whole bunch of return. But yeah, I think that's it was a great trade. Let's just leave it there. Great trade for the Wizards, and they created flexibility for themselves. They've got all kinds of stuff they could. I'm not saying they will, but you could even move a couple of those guys if you needed to in another deal down the line and those kind of things. So yeah, all around, I think home run trade.
Now we do need to get into another trade that is, I think it's going to happen at some point with Mavin Bagley. But before I get to that, this kind of fits into this idea that I've had about the NBA season so far. I think one of the common themes, and the Wizards are certainly a big piece to this, is that the fit for teams matters more this season than we've seen in the past, and perhaps that's because of the way the game is being officiated. But it feels like the superstar heavy teams, if they don't have the right fit, and we're seeing this right now with the Lakers, we're seeing a little bit with the Nets where they've got some fit concerns and things like that as well. It's more of a detriment if fit is not there for a team, and more of a positive if fit is there. I mean, the Warriors are another example of this, right? I feel like that's something that that has been apparent through the first month or so of the season.
Yeah, I like that point. I think that's a good point too. Now, the other thing that I'll say, maybe counter that just a little bit, is the LeBron, Wade, Bosch Heat were 10-10 after 20 games, and we all were rejoicing in how that wasn't going to work, and it was so terrible, and what a dumb decision and all that stuff. And 4 finals later, like it was just fine. So I think it just, I again go back to, we overreact to things in October, November, the beginning part of December. Let's talk around Christmas when we're 20, 30 games deep into the season. Let's really see where things are at. But yeah, I think that's fair too, because I think what happens when you are so top heavy with stars, because that generally means you're top heavy with salary too. And let's use the Lakers as an example, right? You're top heavy in salary, so the rest of your roster is built out. Let's face it, when guys are available for the minimum, they're available for minimum for a reason. There's some form of hole in their game. There's something that nobody is giving them more than a minimum contract. And then if you're top heavy and the star doesn't perform, or the star is not there, it becomes harder to win. It just removes your margin for error. And this was something I was talking with you about a little bit with the Nets Warriors game last night. It really stood out with the Nets. Their margin for error without Kyrie, it's very limited. Now, Joe Harris was also hurt in that game. Fully understand that. But Joe Harris isn't a 20-point difference maker in against the Warriors. That's not, he alone doesn't make up that difference. So I think the challenge for the Nets is, you need now, Durant has to be good to great every night. Harden needs to be good to great every night. And if you're going against a team like the Warriors, who's very good, You need another third guy to step forward, and that's going to be your challenge. Whereas if you had Kyrie, you can feel good that, hey, one of our stars can kind of have a rough game and we'll be all right because the other ones are going to pick up the slack for it. And that I think is the truth there, where that fit, that roster balance, all those things really matter. And I think what we're seeing right now is the teams that are super top heavy, they're scuffling a little bit out of the gate. Whereas the teams that are maybe a little bit more balanced, they've gotten off to that quicker start because they're kind of plug and play. The next guy in, slide them in, off we go with that. Because even the Bucks with all their injuries and illnesses, they've gotten off to a very slow start as well. So yeah, I think that was a very long answer to your very short thought.
So do you think it levels out then as the season goes on? You think the superstar teams, the top heavy teams, will wind up winning more and more, and this concept of the teams, right? The teams that are built around fit and more depth and things like that, those will start to drop down as the star driven teams drop up, or don't drop off, they jump up.
Yeah, I do. I do think it balances out. And I think what happens is I think the star teams just take a while longer to figure it out, because guys who are used to having the ball all the time, when they have to share it more, it becomes a little trickier to sort through. Whereas the Wizards, Bradley Beal is going to have the ball a ton. And everybody else is like, okay, I'm not Bradley Beal level guy, so let Bradley Beal have a ton and we'll figure out how to play off him, despite the fact that, like I just said, they added 5 rotation guys in this offseason in a trade. So what happens is that makes it, I think, in some ways a little bit easier, whereas teams like the Lakers, the Nets, it's, all right, we've got now these 2, 3, 4 guys who need the ball a lot. That's going to take longer to sort through and figure out. And this is one of the things that I'm not trying to make this Lakers centric podcast, because it's a whole other show.
I don't mind. You don't have to apologize to me.
No, I know. I see your background. That's only a shout out to the people who get mad about it. But this is why LeBron being out now is, it's rough for the Lakers, because what you're missing out on is that opportunity to figure things out. What you would have liked to have seen in an ideal world with your ideal world would have been they fit seamlessly and they blow the doors off everybody right out of the gate. But I think realistic idealism would have been, and I might have just made up a new thing there. I'm going to have to go to the psychology books. I don't know if that's a real idealism. Thing. Just realistic idealism. Maybe it is. Maybe I probably heard it somewhere. I'm not that smart to create that. But I think what you have to look at with the Lakers is, you wanted to use this first month and a half to, let's get these guys on the same page. Let's make this work. Let's create, figure out our issues and all that. So when you get into March and April, you can say, all right, LeBron, take a week off. Russ, take a couple days off. AD, you can have a game or 2 off. And what that starts to do is that allows you, because you've already worked through those issues. Now LeBron's going to come back and you're still kind of trying to figure out who you are as a team. And that's just going to stretch now deeper into the season. And now it's stretching into, we need to start winning some games here, because the West is tough. It's, we've already lost some ground that, it's not impossible to make it up, of course. But yeah, I think that's where those injuries, the role player injuries, they suck. I get it. It's been rough to play a bunch of games with only having 7, 8 guys available. Fully understand that. But those guys should be able to plug them in, play a role, and off you go. It's the stars that you got to get through and sort that pecking order and those kind of things. And that, we always knew that was going to be bumpy. Now it's just, we've extended that bumpy window longer.
And part of the challenge has been the role players that have been hurt have been the role players that you can't lose. Like if one of Malik Monk or Wayne Ellington got hurt, okay, you've got the other one. Absolutely. But Trevor Ariza getting hurt. Now Austin Reeves is one of your bigger guys. They just didn't have that many big guys left, to where when Anthony Davis is out there at center, it's AD and 4 guards around him. And then AD is out in the perimeter and they're just getting killed on the boards. But realistic idealism is indeed a thing. It is a thing. I just looked it up. As an idealist who can be realistic about a situation, but they may idealize about how that situation could be different. So there you go. Look at that. Getting into philosophy.
That might describe me pretty good, because I tend to describe myself as a realistic optimist. but maybe that's what I really am, is a really
I'm
realistic
gonna put that in
idealist.
your lower third graphic now. It's gonna be your
There you
nickname,
go.
Keith, the realistic idealist
Maybe
Smith.
it can replace my my missing
Yes, yeah, I'll
Instagram.
toss I'll toss it in
Well,
there
you can
at
put it there.
realistic
Yeah.
ideals. Oh no,
There
someone
it is.
probably really is that. Um,
Yeah, right. Let me go say one other thing on
yeah.
this topic real quick before we move off it. The Chicago Bulls on the flip side kind of blow all of that up because you're talking about a handful of really high usage guys
Hmm.
coming together and they've just
Yeah.
made it work. Now, I think it is also, I think there's a lot of incentive there to make it work because this was DeMar
Hmm.
DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, were these guys worth these contracts. So they wanted to prove it. Zach LaVine wants to prove, hey, I can win,
Hmm.
with that. And then Vooch is, he's high usage as far as he shoots when he gets it, but he's being set up. It's not like he's dribbling out the shot clock and finding his own shots and stuff. But yeah, that's the only counter to it. So it can come
Sure.
together pretty quickly, but is that going to last with them? Because I don't know that DeRozan playing at a career best level is really sustainable. But right now,
But
it
those
looks
are all
pretty good.
also more like 1B or like 2A stars, right, that are coming
Yeah,
together. This isn't like,
yeah,
the
yeah.
true
These are not. Yeah, this is not the
right.
Nets, the Lakers. Star heavy teams.
We'll
Yeah.
finish up with this for this segment. The Kings are in no rush to trade Marvin Bagley, nor should they be. I mean, look, we've talked about this with relation to the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of the NBA can't be traded right now. All the guys that are on new contracts can't be traded till December 15th at the earliest. So that's
Still a month
yeah, so that's
away.
what the Kings are really waiting for here in a Bagley deal, as much as they like to, showcase him to the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, and I think what was pointed out is you put Tristan Thompson and Marvin Bagley together. That's $21 million in
Hmm.
expiring salary. That if you're the Kings, if you're fighting for a playoff spot or whatever, you can kind of get something pretty good. That's a nice chunk of salary matching there for a team, and that's going to be your
Yep.
mindset right now. If you're Sacramento, is all right. One, Thompson's not a huge loss because he's been in and out of the rotation all year, as a anywhere from the fourth to fifth big in their rotation
Hmm.
most nights. And then Bagley's really no loss to them as far as on-court production. So yeah, that would be my guess if I'm the Kings. I would also be in no rush to do this. I get it. I want to see Marvin Bagley somewhere else too because I'd like to see him play. I would like to find out, is Marvin Bagley, does he still
Yeah.
have something to his game as far as being a player? But yeah, we're at a point where yeah, is this a real thing or not? I mean, we're gonna find out. My guess is come trade deadline, Marvin
He's
Bagley is
somewhere else.
gone and on another team. But yeah, I just don't know that. Yeah, I just don't know that it's gonna be there. And I did somebody asked me, would the Kings just buy him out if they can't find a trade? And I mean,
They
sure, I
could, but
would
that would
assume
be
they can't find a
pretty
trade after.
unprecedented.
But yeah, what's the point? Yeah, because if nothing else in the offseason, you can still make him a restricted free
Yeah.
agent and then say, hey, we're gonna work out a sign and trade or
Yeah.
something like that. Now it's not gonna be like a sign and trade where he gets 20 million a year and returns or something, but you could make something
I
happen
mean,
in that
Devontae
realm.
Graham,
But yeah.
right? I mean, look what happened there, where he
Yeah.
was a restricted free agent. The Pelicans said we want him, but we don't want to deal with the whole restricted process, so let's trade something for him, right?
Yep.
And then so you
Yep.
can put yourself in
Exactly.
that situation too. And
Yep.
by waiting too, the standings will shake out a little bit more. So you'll
Exactly.
have some teams that maybe realize, okay, by mid-December, yeah, this isn't happening. Maybe there's some pieces that they're willing to move then that they're not willing to move right now.
Yeah, and there are teams that are hoping the standings shake out the other way
Mm-hmm.
and the Kings really
Yes.
fall out because I mean, it feels like this guy's going to be the object of other teams' affection for forever. Harrison Barnes is playing
Yep.
really well, and people are like, could we, get him for, what feels like the entirety of his Kings run? Is, teams trying to poach him from him. But if you really look at it, let's just do a quick look. I don't know if the Kings fall out of playing
They're in
contention
10 right now. They're at the 10 spot
because
right now.
they've got 10 right now.
But look who's below them.
Oklahoma City are they've kind of played okay, but that's not
Yeah.
going to continue. That's going to, I mean, they're negative
Yeah.
8.6 in point differential. That's going to fall way off. The Pelicans and Rockets, I'm done. They're done.
Yeah.
They're written off. maybe the Spurs can kind of figure it out. I think the Spurs are closer than it seems. Maybe they're only a point off in point differential, so maybe they can figure it out. And then the Wolves, I don't know, just doesn't feel good. Like they just don't play defense. They're just kind of messy. So yeah, I don't know that the Kings are necessarily going to fall out of the play-in. And if you're Sacramento, getting in the play-in is something, right? Because you want De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton and Rashawn Holmes and Davion Mitchell to play some form of meaningful game or games at least. And we've seen in the play-in, you get hot for a couple games, then that turns into a playoff spot. And that becomes, a major difference. So I don't know that the Kings are going to fall out of this, which could turn them into a buyer. But just like we saw last year, does the play-in change how many sellers there are? Because now only 10 teams don't make the postseason. Let's just call it that. So if you yeah, we could get a team in the play, and that's like, man, we didn't really care about this, but here we are. We're here. But it really is like, I do wonder how much that changes the market. It's going to take us a few years for that to really shake itself out. But you don't have these teams that are going to look at it in middle of January and be like, all right, trade deadline's 3-4 weeks away and we're out of it. Like, start selling. Like, we're moving guys, we're off these players, versus, all right, we're still in the play-in mix, and it can be hard for some of these teams to sell to their fans. Like, we don't care about the play-in. The Raptors were able to do it last year, and Raptors fans are like, "What do we care? You're playing in Tampa."
The Raptors weren't
like,
there. They weren't there to feel the backlash.
Exactly. Yeah. No, please go get the good high pick. And clearly they're thrilled now with Scotty Barnes. But yeah, it's like the King. Can you imagine if the Kings were like, we could get into the play-in and maybe fight for a playoff spot, but now we're going to trade Harrison Barnes for a future first-round pick? Like, that's like, I think I would be pretty upset if I was a Kings fan off that one. Now, yeah, if you could get some incredible return, that makes it a little harder, but yeah, it's tough. I always say, when you root for a team that has been in or is expected to be in the playoffs every year, you don't necessarily have the same perspective as a fan base that's not what happens. And when you are there, it feels different. The Orlando Magic, great example, before they kicked off this latest rebuild. I truly believe they did not want to be the 6th, 7th, 8th seed like they were for a couple years. I think if they would have rather said, all right,
blow it up.
It didn't work. Start selling off those pieces, blow it up, do it a year or two earlier. But the reality was, you couldn't do that to the fans here. They hadn't sniffed any kind of success since trading Dwight Howard, and it meant a lot to that group to go. Plus, I do think their returns were a little bit better for those players because they were,
hey, these guys can win, right?
Players.
That's the perspective.
They had won games. So, I mean, and hey, their return for Vooch and Gordon, fantastic. I mean, all sorts of picks and players and everything else.
All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good spot to pause here and leave it off. But the NBA season, it is really picking up. And I'm looking at the standings thinking, oh my goodness, there's still so much movement that can be had here. So we're definitely going to have to jump back on here in a bit and talk more about this. But everybody...
Yeah,
we do. So everybody keep an eye out for that one. We're going to have another video coming later today. Make sure that you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.